So I know these look like a hodgepodge type of pieces of wood. They're just random pieces of wood. I actually went to a pick at my friend Joanne's house. She had closed her business, her antique shop, after so many years, and I was able to go over and look to see some of the items that she was getting ready to send to auction, and I had a vision for these beauties. I thought, oh, I know exactly what I would do with these. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Do I have a wonderful video for you? I am making antique signs. Okay, well, I'm making signs out of antique wood pieces and trying to make them look like antique signs. So if I've spiked your interest, here we go. These have been sitting in her barn for quite a while and they need a cleaning. Not a cleaning to get all that beautiful patina off of them, but a cleaning to get the dirt, debris, cobwebs, what have you off of them. So I'm just going to go ahead and get them brushed off. Then I'm just going to use some Dawn dish soap, some hot water, wipe the board down just to make sure that there's not a lot of dirt left behind. A lot of these board pieces, I really don't know what they were. I think they mostly look like ironing board pieces to me, but I can't say for sure. I don't know. As soon as I saw them, I'm like, oh, these would make some amazing signs. So while they are drying, I'm going to go and I'm going to mix up some Sweet Pickins Milk Paint Flour Sack. So I'm going for an old-timey chippy look in Sweet Pickins is my go-to paint for that. It's really awesome for that. So I'm just going to mix up enough to do a couple coats on each one of these boards. So equal parts water to equal parts powder. Mix it up for 2 minutes. It will really start to bubble, like it gets kind of frothy, and then set it off to the side and let it thicken up for 2 to 10 minutes. But these boards are really dry, so I don't want the paint just to absorb right in and I won't get any chippiness. So I'm actually just using candle wax. I just have a whole box of votives that I thrifted, so I'm just using that wax all over the board. So I'm not really, wherever it's hitting is where it's hitting. It will be what it'll be. Sometimes you can't really tell where you're putting the wax, but that's okay. You know that it's getting on there. Now it's time to paint my boards. Now I'm not looking for full coverage. I'm just keeping a light hand on my paintbrush. I'm just looking to get paint on there. I'm going to be chipping a lot of it off. Then when I was, you know how you are doing something like, hey, I have a couple other ones that I wanted to make signs out. I actually got these at the hoarder's pick, and I'm like, I've been waiting to do some signage. I don't do a lot of signage, really, hardly anymore. I don't know why. It just is one of those things. But I have been waiting to do some signage to do these beautiful pieces. I don't even know like if they were a molding that went around a window because one has a shelf, one doesn't have a shelf. They have some beautiful chippiness already, but I'm still going to wax them and paint those up also. I did apply 2 coats. Don't think this is just one. This is 2 coats. So now I'm just taking a spackling tool, scraping a piece of metal, and look at how easily it's starting to chip off. Where any of that wax is, it did not adhere to the board. It did not soak in. Oh, that chippiness is gorgeous. So for my first couple of signs, I am going to be using some of Funky Junk's stencils. Now the hard thing when it comes to sign making and stencils is you have to find the right size of wood. That's not always easy. I guess I'm always looking for unique items like these. Other than I know you can cut boards and I know you can buy boards and I know all that, but I just like the unique shapes of boards, so I do kind of collect it and I'm like, oh, you know, like those 2 boards I'd hoarded on them for a while. I just hadn't run across any other boards that I envision making signs. I don't know why. That's just how I am. But Funky Junk stencils are fitting this perfectly. So I'm using Fusion's Coal Black paint as my color that I'm going to be putting on. All I did was tape the stencil down. I'm using a makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree store and just minimal paint on there. We're going to be sanding, scraping this off anyway, so you just need a little bit to get that color on there. And the black and white seems to, when you're trying to reproduce a sign like this, for me turns out the best. You could use any paint colors that you wanted. This is just what I chose to use. Farmer's Market filled up that portion of this board, but I still have a lot of blank space left. So I'm going to hand stencil, I guess, a arrow pointing that away. The Farmer's Market is that away. So I'm just using tape as my guide to keep straight. I've got it where the letters are. I'm going to try to eyeball center. I think that, like, if you can see that main where it distressed nice and straight, I think that's the center point of this board. So that's the guide that I am using. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of create a line at first. We'll see how it goes. You know how that goes. Now I need that portion, and I'm like, hey, I've got this A. It's kind of already the shape of an arrow. I think I can make it work. You know, as crafters, we're very creative in what we will use to make something. So now I'm just taking some 220 sandpaper and I'm just sanding, and sanding. I want actually a lot of the black to come off. A quick dusting with the air compressor, and now I need to add some dirt. That's going to make this look old. That is the whole point of this, is to make antique signs, signs that back in the day they would have used whatever they had, whatever wood was laying around to make a sign out of. So I have Fusion's Antiquing Glaze to add some dirt, and I'm not just going to leave it that brown color. We got a wax on and wax off kind of thing. But yes, that'll give it that aged patina that it's been out in the weather. And to tone that brown down one more notch, I'm just using the eraser. I call natural wax an eraser. Now for my next board, I am creating. So they have this. So the farmer's market, when you buy the stencil from Funky Junk, also you can get the Flea and they can get the vintage, and there's a flower. I think there's additives you could add to this market. So I'm going to do a market, I'm going to do vintage, and I'm going to do the Flea, and I'm going to have to add the word "and" in there somewhere, but I think I'm going to use some stamps to do that. I'm doing a little bit of measuring. I'm just trying to make sure that my vintage is above the M, that my Flea, I need to leave a little bit of space to do some "and" in there. Yeah, so I am measuring a little bit. I did measure from the V, from the top to the V, to the bottom to the M. So there is a little bit of measuring going on. You could eyeball it, but I always think I want to eyeball it, but then I just always double check with a ruler. So now I am just using some stamping letters from the letterpress stamp set from IOD. I love this little, it has multiple different fonts in it. So I'm just doing 2, and then miles below it, I'll fit a little arrow in there, but I'm just like trying to eyeball using a piece of tape where my center point so I can keep the lettering nice and straight. And I just use packing tape after I put my lettering down, my stamps down, to grab those letters back up. I keep it right on that piece of tape. It's a great little way to handle all those little letters, and it's flexible, and I'm just using the same Color Fusion's paint to do the stamping. So now I'm going to go ahead and make another little arrow. I'm trying to center in the middle of my 2, where my 2 is, trying to keep it like size appropriate to what the stamping letters are. So I'm just going and making the line, and then I'm eyeballing my stamp set to see what kind of A I have on that stamp set to make my point for my arrow. So all these signs are so similar that I'm just going to show the reveal at the end. Now, this little guy has a handle. I don't really know what it's for. I could take the handle off, but I thought it was kind of character of like sitting it on a shelf or something. So I was leaving that handle, but that did make it a little bit difficult to, like, how am I going to lift this up? But I have my little form that I got from Tracy for my round objects. Just needed to lift it up a little bit more. This one's going to kind of be a combination, so I'm going to use the word shop. Yet again, when it comes to the pieces of wood and stencils, finding the two sizes that match. You know, so I'm like, you know, you play, you're trying to figure it all out. But I decided that I'm going to do the word shop, and I need to do that on the thicker end. I have some other wording I'm going to put on the other side, but for right now, I'm just going to do the word shop. That I'm able to keep on working, yep, just dry it a little bit with a heat gun. So now I have this farm supply one, and I'm just going to use the feed and the livestock, just kind of like livestock feed shop. I know, I don't know, but it was wording that fit, and I kind of thought, you know, sometimes those old-timey signs don't necessarily make sense. You get the gist of it. There's livestock feed, it's a shop. And I thought, just for some fun, on top of the brown antique glaze, I would add some of the Fusion's black. It doesn't really matter how you add that dirt. It just needs to be dirt. Brown, black, it works. So wax on, wipe off the excess. With that clear wax, just kind of blends it all in together. I just really love the patina that this is leaving behind. Now for my next signage, I don't have any stencils that fit. There's not any wording that fits. Now I don't want to get out my CRICUT. I don't want to put like vinyl on it that's just going to rip off way too much of the paint. Since I have that wax underneath there, sometimes it will leave the square mark with where the vinyl was. And sometimes it's just nice to do something without always having to have it in a machine. Well, you have to have a copier, you have to have a printer anyway. So what I'm doing here is I am just using a general font. I have sizes of what my signs are, and I need to make my size of my letters appropriate. Now, I just got these off of Pinterest. You go into Pinterest, you Google like basic font letters, printable letters, drawing letters. There's different fonts. I'm just doing these classic letters, and so what I do is I take that letter, I copy it, and then I paste it into my Excel program where then I can size it to the size of the sign I am making. Yes, it is a little bit time consuming because you have to do each individual letter, but sometimes things are worth the time. So I am making the word general store, so my next letter is E, so I copy that image, I go over to my Excel program, I paste it on there, and then I can't be more than 3 inches. I have a 3-inch diameter that I'm going to be fitting into here, so I'm trying to get as close to 2.50 as I can, but it would not stay at the 2.50, so I chose to do the 2.49. And then I'm butting them up together as close as I can, spaced appropriate. Now the thing with printing out on copier paper, it's not like a CRICUT. You're not going to be able to do the whole general. You're not going to be able to do the whole wording. You're going to have to piece together your words. So now the other sign I am doing groceries and dry goods. So I got that printed out, and as you see, it only would do 3 letters across, but that's okay. So I'm just kind of trying to center, trying to get the size of my paper with all the letters to match. That'll help me line up my letters a little bit better. So then all I did was match up my letters, get them onto my board. I wanted it to fit up. See, this board was hard because of the sizing. It was, and especially having that raised edge, you almost had to personalize your letters. So I'm actually using carbon paper to transfer the image of the letter onto the board. So even though I cut out my letters, I still need to that one's making it stick out a little bit. So I need to cut that little piece off. But yeah, just some carbon paper, old-fashioned carbon paper. And I'm just going to go ahead and trace each and every letter, making sure that I'm pressing hard enough that it's transferring it to the wood. I know that they're kind of hard to see, but as long as I see them, the one person painting them, that'll be helpful. So now I'm just going in by hand with some of that coal black fusion paint again. And yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time to hand paint. I know some people use little Sharpie pens or paint pens, but I don't know. I don't mind. I find painting relaxing, even sign making. You know, this whole process is just, it's artistry. Yeah, it's fun. And I am so blessed, and I thank you all every day for wanting to watch what I do and sharing my ideas, or giving me a reason to get to craft every day. I so totally appreciate it. And one of the things I try hard on this channel is not to be too awful repetitive. So sign making, I can't even tell you the last time I made some signs. I really don't remember right offhand, but it is just fun, and my mind is always going on things to create and you never know, because when you are an out in the wild shopper, you never know what you're going to run across that's going to inspire you, and you'll be like, hey, I can do something with that. And the one thing about the way that I'm doing this, it does not have to be perfect, even when you're doing it, because I'm going to be distressing it. So the copy, the lines are just a general guide. So if it's not perfect, it's okay, because I'm going to be sanding it. So I did not want to print out small little letters for the word and try to paint those. So I'm just going back to that letterpress stamp set by IOD and adding the word and. Noticed when I was working on this piece that it was a little loose, and I thought I'll just wait to the end and then I'll put a little brad nail in there to hold it in place. I don't know if you necessarily have to add a hanger to every single sign that you made, but these I definitely visioned that they would be hanging up, so I want to add a hanging system, just a general picture frame hanger. So now that's all I did, was I just aligned my letters. I just eyeballed it, made sure the bottom of the N and the bottom of the E were aligned, used a little piece of that clear packing tape just to hold them in place. So I could do the 3 letters across, and I just had to add my wording into there. Just trying to keep it level, but yet again, I'm going to be distressing it, so if it's not exactly level, it'll be all right. And for the general store, it didn't fit up as much space, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm staying level, like you're eyeballing it from side to side, from top to bottom. And then I just used masking tape to hold it down. That way, on the top of it, I could slide that copier paper underneath. It seemed to work out perfect. My last sign's a little bit bigger, so the longest board that I have, I'm kind of copying a sign that I did for myself and doing antiques. I love that. but I'm trying to cut all the letters at the same time, so I'm going over multiple times. I almost made it. But yes, this is way bigger. And like when you're sizing your letters, sometimes if you over try to stretch them to fit, it makes them wonky. So I just had to work with what the letter would be. So now I'm just doing that same rule of thumb. I'm taping them down. I have a ruler. I'm matching up the two, lining them up, and then when I have them lined up, I'll use masking tape and hold that one down. So I want to have a general guide that they're almost in line with each other. So this sign is the same concept as the other two. It's just on a much bigger scale. Like a couple of the previous lines, I have this blank space. Yeah, I'm going to do another arrow because why not? It's working out. So just eyeballing where I think center is going to be. I'm using that masking tape as my stencil. It seems to be working out. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Yep, no CRICUT used in this. So we have the plain old buying stencils, which is simple, but the stencils, I love stencils, but the hard thing with stencils is you have to find that right piece of wood to be able to use a stencil on. So they don't always fit. They're either way too, well, most of the time they're way too big for me anyway, or they're just not the shape that I need them to be. So being able to go in and go into Pinterest, print off a letter, size the letter, and then fit it to your piece to make it a unique, unusual piece. Carbon paper is a wonderful thing. You don't even have to use carbon paper, I'm sure. You could like just push hard enough. I've done that before, pushed hard enough that you could just see your trace marks, but carbon paper does help. And I just love it, that nice bold. I love the shape of all these signs. That's what gives them the antique look, and then adding a little bit of antiquing glaze from some dirt to give them some age. Yes, please. So thanks again for watching today's video. Let me know which one of the signs I made over, and are you going to try any of these techniques? Or you probably have already tried these techniques if you were watching a DIY craft channel. So thanks again for watching. If you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you stayed to the end of the video, that means you like this kind of content. So smash that subscription button along with the like button, and then your notification bell so you know when we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.